If you struggle with shyness or social anxiety, check out our free No BS training course with actual useful advice you can do from home. None of that just get out there nonsense. The link is in the description below. For now, let's get to today's question.
Ever since the term social phobia appeared in the DSM-3 in 1980, there has been confusion as to the differences between shyness and social anxiety disorder, the new diagnostic category formerly called social phobia. Full guide, From Lonely to Social Life in 27 Days. It is not true that all people with social anxiety disorder are shy. I have personally worked with many people with personalities that were extroverted. Having social anxiety held them back and restricted them from doing what they wanted to do in life. When they overcame social anxiety, they found they enjoyed being the center of attention and the life of the party. The definition of social anxiety disorder has shifted over the past 30 years. As the seriousness of the situation became clearer, and government epidemiological data consistently showed a larger percentage of the general population suffering from social anxiety symptoms, minor changes were made in the latest version, the DSM-5, to indicate that the fear, anxiety, or avoidance is persistent, typically lasting 6 or more months. The question about what constitutes shyness as opposed to social anxiety disorder originated because of the problems of over or underdiagnosing the amount of social anxiety felt. Social anxiety disorder is classified as a significant amount of embarrassment or humiliation in social performance-based situations, to a point at which the affected person often avoids these situations entirely, or endures them with a high level of distress. 2 People with social anxiety disorder endure high levels of anxiety in daily activities, and this high level of anxiety makes them avoid situations in which they would like to participate. A key difference between the two definitions is that social anxiety disorder is not considered a normal facet of personality, or a personality characteristic, whereas shyness is. People with social anxiety experience fear, anxiety, stress, embarrassment, and humiliation on a daily basis. The amount of anxiety experienced is enough to inflict great emotional pain and cause people to avoid situations, rather than facing them and experiencing fear and anxiety. The manner in which significant impairment or distress is defined impacts whether social anxiety symptoms are classified as disordered or non-disordered. What constitutes significant impairment and distress is subjective, and so the number of people with social anxiety disorder varies from 1.9% to 20.4% of the population, depending on the differing definitions of significant impairment. 4. All anxieties are caused by fear. I think it's matter of what kind of fear and how it was caused. Most anxieties, I would say, is rooted in the early stages of a child's life, especially when the child is learning about themselves. Yes, a child learn how to speak or how to do addition and subtraction, but they learn much more than just that. They learn about lessons on life and about themselves from their parents. Are they good or bad? Are their existence wanted or not? As a child, whatever the parents say is always right. If they need something and the parents doesn't respond, they might internalize the damage. If the parents are constantly fighting with each other, the child might feel unsafe and think he or she is to blame for the fights. If a child getting bullied at school, that could leave an emotional scar if not dealt with. To be clear here, I am not advocating living inside a bubble or pretend that no problems exists for the sake of your child, but teaching them and reassuring them that their value in midst of all the conflicts is important. What should be done, or they might question their existence. A damaged self-esteem will probably lead to shyness and withdrawal from the society. They won't be able to ways to stand up or provide themselves on different levels, financially, emotionally, physically, etc. However, low self-esteem doesn't mean you have to withdraw in all areas all at once. Some might be able to provide for themselves financially but can't connect relationally. It depends on where the scar is, how deep it is, and how much of it was actually treated. Teaching kids the very foundation of independence and self-care is pretty crucial, because they need to be able to stand on their own one day. I feel like not a lot of kids are fortunately enough to receive an environment that develops their self-esteem, but it's not the end of the world. You can start right now, and still make changes. On the grand scheme of things, when you are learning about how to manage social anxiety or shyness, it's really about growing your independence as a person. Interested in more? Losing interests, losing relationships, discover the 5 causes of emotional apathy, free PDF. It's a learned behavior. The causes of social anxiety are specific to each person, although often there are some between situations that have caused the fear, apprehension or nervousness that is shared. One typical example is school bullying. Personally, shyness ruined most of my 20s, but the man who really turned my life around was Sean. How to Overcome Shyness, the ultimate 3-step guide. Moldite. There are a large proportion of adults who consider that they were bullied at school. The impact of bullying, dependent on the age suffered, can show as a vast array of symptoms when that child gets older. Stuttering, shaking, your heart beating fast. There are many more symptoms that can present themselves from the deeply buried reaction to past events. I was a shy child. The level of my social anxiety simply grew over time until the way I lived felt normal for me. I believe trauma of all kinds, especially being abused/neglected as a child, can cause shyness, or outright withdrawn. It also may just be a personality trait, but in my case, I believe it was definitely due to being abused the majority of my early life. It's taken a lot to come out of my shell, and I'm still good at hiding a bit, depending on the situation. On a side note, someone told me one day it helped very much was, "You're not the only person in the world, you're not that important. Most people don't care about you or what you do. They're likely not even looking at you or in your direction. They primarily worry about themselves, just like you do." Does that make good sense to anyone else? I'm not a conceited person whatsoever, but we all get so wrapped up in me, my way of being, we don't realize 99.999999999 of the world doesn't know who we are, much less of what we are doing, saying or how we look, and they simply don't care. We need to worry more about our own selves. I do believe there would be much less micro and macro conflict and trauma. We don't need to worry about what others think of us. It's really none of our business. Anxiety is an extremely stressful. Many people still work, spend time with friends, and hold on to relationships while living with anxiety. But others are more affected by it, and some struggle to go through each and every day. A comprehensive solution to anxiety. There are many people out there that are experts on stopping anxiety, and seeking help from them can be very valuable. Techniques to control anxiety: jogging and exercise, thought journal, positivity journal, podcast distraction, lovemaking, ready to cure your anxiety, magnesium, drinking water, walking/talking, desensitization, retrain your breathing. If you want any medication for your anxiety, then you buy Xanax online. FDA approved Xanax is good for anxiety. Well, as a different approach to that problem, it is not knowing yourself enough, not knowing what you look like, sound like, etc., and feeling afraid that you have it all wrong. Maybe you were treated in a critical way when you were brought up, put down or ignored for good things about you. I think unloving parents can contribute to this. I was brought up by my mother, who had issues about my father, about whom she was very, very angry. I was his daughter and she scapegoated me. Not only did I grow up as you describe, but also not having a loving male in my life, I was unable to talk to men. I would suggest group therapy if possible. You gain some self-knowledge and self-confidence.